A mud-covered man walks into a luxury Manhattan steakhouse, and everyone dismisses him as a homeless vagrant, except an exhausted waitress who risks everything to save him from a poisoned steak. When she slips a desperate note into his hand, she has no idea she's protecting Dante Moretti, New York's most dangerous mafia boss, disguised to test the loyalty of his own businesses. What began as an act of compassion will trigger ruthless vengeance and a life-changing reward. But is Sonia ready to discover that the man she saved doesn't call the police, but his own executioners? If you've ever wondered whether one small act of kindness can change everything, keep watching. This story will prove that sometimes the person you save might just save you back, but in ways you never expected. Hit that like button if you believe good people still exist in this dark world. And let's dive into this incredible, true story. The rain in Manhattan doesn't cleanse anything. It just makes the garbage glisten. It was a Thursday night in November, the kind of night that seeps into your bones and reminds you that winter is coming to collect debts. Sonia Mitchell adjusted her apron, wincing as the knot dug into her lower back. She was 29, but under the harsh lighting of Lombardi's prime, she felt ancient. Lombardi's used to be the crown jewel of Midtown, a place where Wall Street titans and Broadway producers came to celebrate victories over 40-ounce porterhouses. Now it was a fading empire. The leather booths were cracked, the marble floors were chipped, and the management had rotted from the inside out. "Table 9 needs water, Sonia. Move your ass or I dock your tips." The voice belonged to Vincent Calabrese, but everyone called him Vinny the Rat. He wasn't just a bad manager. He was a parasite with a Napoleon complex and a gambling addiction. Vinny had taken over 6 months ago when the original owner died, and he treated the staff like servants and the customers like inconveniences. "Coming, Vinny," Sonia muttered, grabbing the water pitcher. She couldn't afford to lose this job. Her younger sister Emma was 3 months behind on her nursing school tuition at NYU, and their father's chemo treatments were bleeding them dry. Every dollar mattered. The dining room was half empty tonight, a couple arguing over prenups, a regular businessman drowning his divorce in bourbon, and the constant drum of rain against the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Fifth Avenue. Then the heavy oak door swung open with a gust of cold wind. The man who entered looked like he'd been spit out by the storm itself. He was tall but hunched, wearing a torn military surplus jacket caked with mud. A black beanie was pulled low over his forehead, and a thick beard covered most of his face. He stood in the entrance, dripping rainwater onto the polished marble, his piercing blue eyes scanning the restaurant with an intensity that made Sonia's stomach flip. The hostess, a college girl named Ashley, took one look at him and froze. Her hand moved instinctively toward the phone to call security. But before she could dial, Vinny emerged from the back office like a shark smelling blood. "Hey, you!" Vinny's voice cut through the quiet restaurant like a knife. "This ain't a soup kitchen. The shelter's on 9th Avenue. Get lost." The man didn't flinch. He straightened his shoulders, and for a brief moment, something dangerous flickered in his eyes. Something cold and calculating that made Sonia take an involuntary step back. "I'm here for dinner," the man said. His voice was deep, gravelly, but articulate. "This is a restaurant, correct?" Vinny laughed. A cruel bark. "This is a 5-star establishment. We got a dress code. Look at yourself. You look like you crawled out of a dumpster." The man looked down at his muddy boots, then back at Vinny with unsettling calmness. "I have money. Cash. Does your dress code apply to the currency or the man holding it?" The entire restaurant went silent. The arguing couple stopped mid-sentence. The businessman put down his glass. Sonia felt her pulse quicken. Vinny's face turned an ugly shade of purple. He hated being challenged, especially by someone he considered beneath him. "Listen, pal," Vinny started, stepping closer with his chest puffed out. "I don't want trouble. I want you gone before you stink up my restaurant." "I'm a paying customer," the man said flatly, stepping around Vinny with deliberate purpose. He walked toward a small booth near the kitchen, table 6, and sat down. The wet canvas of his jacket squelched against the leather. His movements were controlled, almost military. Vinny looked like he was about to have an aneurysm. He whipped around, his eyes landing on Sonia like a predator selecting prey. "Sonia," he hissed, marching toward her. "Get over here, now." Sonia hurried over, her heart hammering. "Yes, Vinny?" "Tell that bum we're closed. Tell him the health inspector shut us down." "I don't care. Just get him out." Sonia glanced at the man sitting in booth 6. He was staring out the window at the rain, shivering slightly. He looked exhausted, not threatening. Hungry. Human. "Vinny, we can't refuse service without cause." "I don't give a damn about cause," Vinny spat, stepping closer until she could smell the garlic and desperation on his breath. "He's bad for business. If you don't handle it, you're fired. And I know your old man needs those treatments. Be a shame if you couldn't help him anymore." The threat hung in the air like poison gas. Sonia felt her stomach twist. Vinny knew exactly where to press to cause maximum pain. I'll take care of it," she whispered. She walked toward table 6, her legs feeling like lead. Up close, the man looked worse. Deep circles under his eyes, rough calloused hands resting on the table. But there was something else there, too. Under his frayed sleeve, she caught a glimpse of an expensive watch, scratched, but unmistakably luxury. "I'm sorry about the manager," Sonia said softly, placing a menu down even though Vinny was glaring daggers at her from across the room. "He's having a rough night." The man looked up at her, and his blue eyes softened just slightly. "Seems like a charming guy." "I'm Dante." "Sonia," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. She couldn't bring herself to kick him out. Not yet. "Can I get you something to drink? Coffee? Tea?" "Coffee would be great," Dante said. "Black, and I'd like to order dinner." Sonia glanced nervously at Vinny, who was watching from the bar like a vulture. "What can I get you?" Dante opened the menu slowly, his eyes scanning the prices without flinching. He didn't look at the burgers or the pasta. His finger went directly to the top of the page. "I'll have the 24-ounce dry-aged ribeye," he said calmly. "Medium rare, with the truffle mashed potatoes and grilled asparagus." Sonia's breath caught in her throat. That was a $120 steak, the most expensive item on the menu. "Sir," she leaned in closer, lowering her voice to a whisper. "I need to ask, do you have the money for that? If you don't, I can buy you a burger myself, I promise. But if you order that steak and can't pay, Vinny will call the cops. He's looking for any excuse." Dante reached into his muddy jacket and pulled out a money clip. It wasn't thick, but he peeled off 2 crisp $100 bills and placed them on the table. "I appreciate your concern, Sonia," he said quietly. "Truly, but I can pay." Sonia stared at the bills. They were real, brand new. "I'll ring this up right now," she said, picking them up carefully. "So there's no confusion." As she walked back toward the register, Vinny intercepted her like a linebacker. "Well?" "He ordered the ribeye," Sonia said, holding up the cash. "And he paid up front. $200. Vinny's jaw tightened as he stared at the money. He couldn't kick out a paying customer who'd already dropped cash. It would open the restaurant up to a lawsuit. But Vinny wasn't the type to lose gracefully. He snatched the bills from her hand and stuffed them in his pocket. "Fine," Vinny sneered. "Ring it in. But tell Marco to take his sweet time. Let's see how patient our guest really is." Vinny disappeared into the kitchen, and Sonia felt ice water flood her veins. She knew that look on Vinny's face. Whatever he was planning, it wasn't going to be good. The kitchen at Lombardi's Prime was a war zone of stainless steel and steam, reeking of seared meat, garlic, and decades of accumulated grease that no amount of scrubbing could remove. Marco Benedetti, the head chef, was a 50-year-old veteran of the New York restaurant scene who had seen better days and better bosses. He was wiping down the flat-top grill when Vinny burst through the swing doors like a man possessed. "Order up," Sonia called from the pass-through window, sliding the ticket across. "Table 6, the 24-ounce ribeye, medium rare, with truffle mash and asparagus." Marco grabbed the ticket and glanced at it, then looked toward the dining room where he could see the muddy stranger sitting patiently in booth 6. The homeless guy? Vinny said we were tossing him out. He paid, Sonia said firmly from the doorway. $200, cash, up front. Marco shrugged, wiping his hands on his sauce-stained apron. Money's money. I'll grab one of the prime cuts from the walk-in. But before Marco could take 2 steps toward the refrigerator, Vinny's hand shot out and grabbed his shoulder, spinning him around with surprising force. "Hold it, Marco," Vinny said, his voice low and venomous. "I want to talk to you about this order." Sonia watched from the doorway, her stomach knotting. She knew that tone. That was Vinny's "I'm about to do something terrible" voice. "What's there to talk about, boss?" Marco asked cautiously. "It's a ribeye. Standard prep. 20 minutes on the grill." Vinny walked over to the prep station, his cheap dress shoes squeaking on the greasy tile floor. He looked at the printed ticket, then around the kitchen with calculating eyes. His gaze landed on the waste bin near the dishwashing station. A large stainless steel container that was supposed to be emptied every 4 hours, but usually sat for 8, because Vinny was too cheap to pay for proper waste removal. "See that?" Vinny pointed to the bin. Earlier that evening, a steak had been returned by a customer who claimed it was too fatty and undercooked. It had been sitting in the waste area for nearly 3 hours, slowly warming to room temperature, turning gray at the edges. A fruit fly was doing lazy circles above it. Marco followed Vinny's finger and his face went pale. "Boss, that's trash." "It's been sitting out. I can't—" "You can and you will," Vinny interrupted, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow felt louder than shouting. "Use that one. Cook it hard. Burn the outside to hide the color. Drown it in that fancy truffle butter we charge extra for. The grease will mask the smell." "Vinny, that's insane," Marco said, his voice rising. "That meat is spoiled. It's been sitting at room temp for 3 hours in a dirty bin. The guy could get serious food poisoning. E. coli, salmonella. We could kill someone. I could lose my license. We could get shut down by the health department." "Shut down?" Vinny laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Look around, Marco. We're already dying. This place is bleeding money. That bum out there thinks he can waltz in here looking like he sleeps under a bridge and order our most expensive steak? Like he's some kind of Wall Street prince? He's mocking us. He's mocking me. He paid, Vinny," Marco said desperately. "He gave us $200. That's good money. Why would you—" "Because I don't like his face," Vinny snarled. "Because guys like him think they can disrespect me in my own restaurant. Because his stomach is probably lined with steel from eating out of dumpsters. This is 5-star dining compared to whatever garbage he usually eats. He probably stole that money anyway." Sonia's hands were shaking. She gripped the doorframe so hard her knuckles turned white. "Vinny, you can't do this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper but cutting through the kitchen noise. "This is wrong. It's illegal. It's—" Vinny spun on her, his face flushed red with rage. "You shut your mouth, Sonia. You want to keep your job? You want to pay for your sister's fancy nursing school? You want to afford your father's next chemo treatment?" The words hit her like physical blows. Vinny knew exactly where to strike. He'd overheard a phone call in the break room last month when Sonia had been crying to Emma about maxing out their last credit card. He'd been using it against her ever since. "That man is a human being," Sonia said, surprised by the steadiness in her own voice. "He deserves real food. Safe food. He deserves what I decide he deserves." Vinny shot back. He turned to Marco. "Cook the trash steak. If you don't, Marco, you're fired. And I'll make damn sure you never work in another kitchen in this city. I know people. I'll bury you." Marco looked at Sonia, his eyes pleading for help, for a way out. But what could either of them do? Marco had twin daughters in high school, and an ex-wife who was bleeding him dry with alimony payments. He was barely keeping his head above water as it was. "Vinny, please," Marco said, his voice cracking. "I got kids. I can't do this. It's not right." "Life's not right," Vinny said coldly. "But you got bills, so cook the damn steak or get out of my kitchen." The silence that followed was suffocating. Marco looked at the graying meat in the waste bin, then at his hands, then at the floor. Slowly, with trembling fingers, he reached into the bin and pulled out the tainted ribeye. It left a greasy smear on his palm. "Marco," Sonia whispered. "Please don't." "Get back on the floor, Sonia," Vinny barked, pointing toward the dining room. "Go refill waters. Go smile at customers. And if you say one word to that bum out there, I'll fire you on the spot. And then I'll call your landlord and tell him you've been stealing from the register. I'll make sure you can't get another job in this city. Do you understand me?" Sonia felt tears burning behind her eyes. But she refused to let them fall. Not in front of Vinny. She turned and walked back out into the dining room, the swing door closing behind her with a soft whoosh that sounded like a coffin ceiling. The restaurant felt like it was closing in on her. The walls seemed to press inward. She could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears, drowning out the quiet jazz playing over the speakers. She looked at table 6. Dante was still sitting there, calm and patient. He'd removed his beanie, revealing thick, dark hair with distinguished silver streaks at the temples. Even from across the room, there was something about him, an aura of controlled power that didn't match the torn jacket and muddy boots. He looked up and caught her staring. He offered a small, polite nod. A human gesture. A kind gesture. They were about to poison him. If she told him, Vinny would destroy her. He'd done it before to a line cook who'd tried to report him for skimming from the register. The cook had been blacklisted from every restaurant in Midtown. He'd ended up working at a bodega in Queens, making minimum wage. Sonia couldn't afford to be unemployed. Not with Emma's tuition due next week. Not with her father's next round of treatments scheduled for Monday. But she watched Dante take a sip of his coffee, watched him glance out the window at the rain-soaked streets of Manhattan with an expression that looked almost lonely. He trusted them. He'd paid with what might have been his last cash, and they were going to make him sick. Maybe even kill him. Sonia walked to the service station, her mind racing. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She grabbed a clean white napkin from the stack, the kind they used for formal place settings. She looked around. Vinny was still in the kitchen, probably standing over Marco like a prison guard. The dining room had security cameras, but they didn't have audio recording. Vinny was too cheap for that upgrade. If she spoke to Dante directly, other customers might hear. Vinny might see on the camera playback and know she'd warned him. She needed to be silent. She grabbed a blue ballpoint pen from her apron pocket, the same pen she used to take orders. She pressed the tip to the soft cloth napkin. The ink bled slightly into the fabric. "Don't eat the steak," she wrote quickly. But that wasn't enough. He might think she was being rude, or that the food was just poorly cooked. He needed to know the danger. The manager told the chef to use spoiled meat from the garbage because of how you look. "It will make you very sick. Maybe worse. Please trust me." She paused, pen hovering over the fabric. What now? If he confronted Vinny, there would be a scene. Vinny would know she'd tipped him off. She'd be fired immediately, maybe worse. "Pretend to eat. Cut it, but don't take a bite. I'll meet you outside in 15 minutes. There's a food truck on the corner. I'll buy you real food. I'm so sorry." She crumpled the napkin into a tight ball and hid it in her palm. Her heart was hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. "Order up!" Marco's voice came from the kitchen window, defeated and hollow. Sonia walked to the pass-through. The plate looked perfect. Marco was a professional despite everything. He'd seared the meat beautifully to hide the gray color underneath, covered it in rich truffle butter and fresh herbs, arranged the asparagus artfully. It looked like a $120 masterpiece. It was a biological weapon. "Take it to him," Vinny said, appearing behind Marco like a demon. He was smiling now, a cruel, satisfied smile. "And give him the full VIP treatment, Sonia. Make him feel special." Sonia picked up the heavy ceramic plate. The heat radiated through her hands. "Yes, Vinny," she said, her voice flat. Every step across the dining room felt like walking through quicksand. The distance to table 6 seemed impossibly long. She could feel Vinny's eyes boring into her back, watching her every move. She reached the table. Dante looked up from his newspaper, and his eyes widened slightly at the sight of the beautiful steak. "That looks incredible," he said, his voice warm. "My compliments to the chef." "Of course, sir," Sonia said loudly for Vinny's benefit. "Can I get you anything else? Steak sauce? Fresh ground pepper?" As she set the plate down, she adjusted the silverware with shaking hands, using her body to block the sightline from where Vinny was watching at the kitchen window. She pressed the crumpled napkin into Dante's rough, calloused hand resting on the table. She squeezed his hand hard once, a signal, a plea. Dante froze. His entire body went rigid. He looked up at her, his blue eyes sharp and suddenly very, very dangerous. "Read it," she mouthed silently, her eyes desperate. "Please." She released his hand and stepped back. "Enjoy your meal, sir," she said, her voice cracking just slightly. She turned and walked away on legs that felt like they might give out at any moment. She retreated to the far end of the bar, pretending to organize cocktail napkins while watching Dante's reflection in the mirror behind the liquor bottles. Dante sat perfectly still for a long moment. The steam rose from the poisoned steak. Slowly, carefully, he unfolded the napkin in his lap below the table edge, where the cameras couldn't see. Sonia watched his face in the reflection. She saw the exact moment he finished reading. His expression changed completely. The tired, hunched exterior vanished. His spine straightened. His shoulders squared, his jaw set with cold precision. He looked at the steak, then toward the kitchen where Vinny was lurking, then back at Sonia's reflection in the mirror. The look on his face wasn't anger. It wasn't shock. It was something far more terrifying. It was the expression of a predator realizing it had just been challenged. And predators don't forgive challenges. Dante picked up his knife and fork with movements that were too controlled, too precise. Sonia watched from her position at the bar, her breath caught in her throat. He cut into the meat slowly. The knife slid through the butter-soft exterior easily, Marco's skills hiding the rot underneath. He speared a piece on his fork and lifted it toward his mouth. Sonia wanted to scream. Had he not read the note? Did he not believe her? The fork stopped an inch from his lips. Dante paused, held it there for a moment as if considering, then slowly lowered it back to the plate. He set down his utensils with deliberate care. Then he reached into his jacket pocket, not the torn outer pocket, but an inner one, and pulled out a phone. Not a cheap burner, not a cracked screen held together with tape. A brand new iPhone in a leather case that probably cost more than Sonia made in a week. He tapped the screen 3 times with his thumb. Fast. Precise. Like he'd done it 1,000 times. "Hey!" Vinny's voice cut across the restaurant like a whip crack. He'd been watching from the kitchen window and came storming out. "No phone calls in the dining room. This is a classy establishment. Show some respect." Dante didn't even glance at him. He held the phone to his ear. His eyes locked on Sonia across the room. There was something in that gaze. Not gratitude, not fear, but cold calculation. Like he was taking inventory, measuring assets and liabilities. "Yeah, it's me," Dante said into the phone, his voice dropping an octave into something that rumbled like distant thunder. "I'm at the Midtown location. Lombardi's. It's worse than we thought. Much worse." Vinny arrived at the table, his face purple with rage. "I said no phones. Are you deaf? Get off the phone or get out." Dante held up one finger. "Wait," without looking at Vinny. The dismissive gesture made Vinny's eye twitch. "I need you to send Marcus and the crew," Dante continued into the phone, his voice calm, but carrying an edge that made the hair on Sonia's arms stand up. "Yeah, the full team. Bring the testing kit. And Tommy, tell him to bring the special tools. We're going to need them." Vinny lunged forward, reaching for the phone. "Give me that." Dante moved with shocking speed. He didn't stand up. He simply caught Vinny's wrist mid-air, his grip like a steel trap. Vinny gasped, his face contorting in pain. "I wouldn't do that, Vincent," Dante said quietly, still holding the phone to his ear with his other hand. "I'm on an important call." When Dante said Vincent, something in his voice made it sound like a death sentence. Vinny's knees actually buckled slightly. How How do you know my name? Vinny stammered. Dante smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of a shark that had just realized the cage was unlocked. I know everything about you, Vincent Calabrese. Born in Red Hook, gambling debts to 3 different bookies. You owe Sal the Hammer DeMarco $47,000. You've been skimming from the register to pay the vig. And now? Dante's grip tightened, making Vinny wince. You just tried to poison a paying customer. Dante released Vinny's wrist with a shove that sent the manager stumbling backward into a nearby chair. Vinny caught himself, breathing hard, his face now drained of all color. Who the hell are you? Vinny whispered. Dante put the phone on speaker and set it on the table next to the poisoned steak. A voice crackled through, deep, professional, and absolutely terrifying in its calmness. Boss, this is Marcus. I'm 5 minutes out with the crew. Tony's bringing the kit. Do we need to make this permanent? The word permanent hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Sonia felt her legs go weak. She gripped the bar to keep from falling. Vinny's mouth opened and closed like a fish drowning in air. Not yet, Dante said to the phone, his eyes never leaving Vinny. Let's see how cooperative everyone wants to be. He ended the call. The restaurant was dead silent. The couple who'd been arguing had stopped eating, forks frozen halfway to their mouths. The businessman at the bar was staring with wide eyes. Even the kitchen had gone quiet. Marco must have been listening from the pass-through window. Dante stood up, slowly, deliberately. As he rose to his full height, easily 6'3", the torn jacket fell open, revealing what had been hidden underneath. A perfectly tailored black suit. Tom Ford, if Sonia had to guess. Custom fitted. The white dress shirt underneath was crisp despite the jacket, unbuttoned at the collar. And there, glinting in the low light of the restaurant, was a thick gold chain. Heavy. Real. The kind of gold that wasn't trying to look expensive. It just was. Hanging from it was a large ornate cross, encrusted with what looked like diamonds, resting against his chest. But it was his hands that made Sonia's breath catch. As Dante reached up to unzip the torn outer jacket completely, she saw his fingers. Every single one decorated with rings. Not cheap costume jewelry. Real stones. Diamond rings that caught the light and threw rainbows across the white tablecloth. Statement rings. The kind that said, I can afford to wear a down payment on a house on each hand. And his knuckles. Between the rings, covering the backs of his hands and disappearing up under his sleeves, were intricate tattoos. Not prison ink, not amateur work. These were professional, expensive tattoos. Detailed patterns that looked like they told stories. Family crests, maybe. Symbols of allegiance. As he shrugged off the muddy outer jacket entirely, more was revealed. The watch on his left wrist wasn't just expensive. It was a Patek Philippe, platinum, with a black face that probably cost more than Sonia's car. Scratch that. More than 3 of her cars. His neck was visible now above the open collar. More tattoos, creeping up from his collarbone. Detailed work that must have taken hundreds of hours. And when he ran his hand through his hair, no longer hidden by the beanie, Sonia saw it. His hair wasn't dark with silver streaks. That had been the wet, the lighting, the grime. As he pushed it back with his fingers, slicking it away from his face in a practiced gesture, the truth was revealed. Platinum blonde. Bright, striking, slicked back perfectly even after being under a wet beanie. The kind of platinum that required expensive maintenance and made a statement. I don't hide. And there, just visible now that his hair was pushed back, above his left eyebrow, a small tattoo. A distinctive mark that looked like a crown or a symbol. It was subtle but unmistakable once you saw it. This man wasn't homeless. This man wasn't even trying to look homeless anymore. This was a man who wore power like other people wore cologne. Sonia, Dante said. His voice softer now, but no less commanding. Come here, please. Sonia's feet moved before her brain could engage. She walked across the restaurant in a daze, dimly aware that every eye in the place was on her. She stopped a few feet from the table, her hands twisting together nervously. Dante looked at her, really looked at her, and for a moment his expression softened. "Thank you," he said simply, "for the note. You saved me from something very unpleasant, and you risked everything to do it." I didn't know what else to do," Sonia stammered. "I couldn't let him—" "You did the right thing," Dante interrupted gently. Then he turned his attention back to Vinny, who was still standing there looking like he might vomit or pass out or both. "Now," Dante said, his voice hardening again, "let's talk about what happens next. Vinny, you have two choices. You can cooperate, answer my questions, and maybe, walk out of here tonight. Or you can keep playing stupid, and when my people arrive, we'll have a very different kind of conversation. The kind that happens in a basement. Do you understand?" Vinny nodded frantically, words failing him completely. At that moment, the front door of Lombardi's opened. 3 men walked in. They weren't wearing torn jackets or pretending to be anything other than what they were. The first was massive, 6'5", built like a professional linebacker, wearing a black suit that strained across his shoulders. This had to be Marcus. The second was lean and wiry, carrying a silver briefcase that looked medical or scientific. Tony with the testing kit. The third was older, maybe 60, with silver hair and cold eyes that had seen absolutely everything. He carried himself like a soldier, like someone who'd done terrible things and slept fine afterward. "Boss," Marcus said, nodding respectfully to Dante. He didn't acknowledge the muddy jacket on the booth or the wet beanie. He looked at Dante in the expensive suit with the gold chain and the rings, like this was exactly what he'd expected to find. "Secure the front," Dante ordered. "Lock it. Put up the private event sign. I don't want any more customers walking in until we're done here." "Done, boss," Marcus said, moving immediately to the door. Tony set the silver briefcase on a nearby table and opened it. Inside were vials, swabs, and testing strips, the kind of equipment you'd see in a lab, or in a crime scene investigation. "Test the steak," Dante said, pointing to the plate. "I want to know exactly what's in it. Document everything." Tony nodded and got to work, pulling on latex gloves with practiced efficiency. The older man, still unnamed, simply stood by the kitchen door with his hands clasped in front of him, watching everything with those dead, patient eyes. A guardian, or an executioner waiting for orders. Sonia stood frozen, trying to process what was happening. This wasn't a health inspector. This wasn't the police. This was something else entirely. Something that operated outside the law. Something that made its own rules. Vinny seemed to realize it too. He dropped to his knees. "Please," Vinny gasped. "Please, I didn't know who you were. I'm sorry." "You're not sorry you did it," Dante said coldly. "You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference." He looked at Sonia. Who else knew about this? Who else was involved? "The chef," Sonia said quietly. "Marco." But Vinny threatened to fire him. "Marco has kids. He didn't want to do it." "Bring him out," Dante ordered. Sonia hesitated, then hurried to the kitchen. Marco was indeed standing at the pass-through, his face gray with terror. "Marco," Sonia whispered, "you need to come out. Now. If you don't—" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Marco wiped his hands on his apron and followed her out like a man walking to his own execution. Marco shuffled into the dining room like a condemned man approaching the gallows. His chef's whites were stained with grease and what might have been tears. He kept his eyes on the floor, unable to look at anyone. Not Dante, not Sonia, not even Vinny, who was still on his knees. "You're the chef," Dante stated. It wasn't a question. "Yes, sir," Marco whispered, his voice barely audible. "Look at me when I'm speaking to you," Dante commanded. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried absolute authority. Marco's head snapped up. His eyes were red-rimmed and terrified. "Yes, sir. I'm Marco Benedetti, head chef. I've been here 11 years. Did you cook this?" Dante pointed to the steak that Tony was now carefully swabbing and testing. Yes, sir," I did. Marco's voice cracked. And where did the meat come from? Marco's eyes darted to Vinny, then back to Dante. It was... Don't look at him, Dante said sharply. Look at me. Where did the meat come from, Marco? The waste bin, Marco admitted, his shoulders sagging. It had been sitting out for 3 hours, maybe longer. It was returned by a customer earlier. Vinny told me. He said I had to use it or he'd fire me. He said he'd make sure I never worked in another kitchen. I have 2 daughters. I'm behind on child support. My ex-wife is threatening to take me back to court. I couldn't afford to lose this job. Tears were streaming down Marco's face now. I know that's not an excuse. I know what I did was wrong. I could have killed someone. I'm a chef. I took an oath when I went to culinary school. Feed people, don't poison them. But I was scared. I was weak. And I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. The raw honesty in Marco's confession seemed to hang in the air. Even Marcus, the massive enforcer by the door, shifted his weight uncomfortably. Dante studied Marco for a long moment, his blue eyes unreadable. Then he looked at Tony. What did you find? Tony held up a testing strip that had turned an angry red color. Staphylococcus aureus. High concentration. This meat was definitely contaminated. If someone had eaten this, especially a full portion, they'd be violently ill within hours. Vomiting, diarrhea, possible septic shock depending on their immune system. Could be fatal in extreme cases, especially for someone elderly or immunocompromised. Vinny said you probably ate out of dumpsters, Marco added quietly, looking at Dante's expensive suit with confusion and shame. He said your stomach could handle it. Dante's jaw tightened. I see. He turned his attention to Vinny, who was still kneeling on the floor, now visibly shaking. So your logic was that because I looked poor, because I looked homeless, my life was worth less. I could be poisoned because people like me don't matter. No, that's not... Vinny started. Don't insult me by lying now. Dante cut him off. His voice was ice. You saw someone you deemed beneath you, and you decided to teach them a lesson. You decided to hurt them, maybe kill them. Because you could. Because you thought there would be no consequences. Dante walked slowly toward Vinny, his expensive leather shoes clicking on the marble floor. Each step sounded like a countdown. Do you know who I am, Vincent? No, Vinny whimpered. I swear I don't. My name is Dante Moretti, Dante said, and the name landed like a bomb. The color drained from Vinny's face so fast he looked like a corpse. Even Marco gasped. Sonia had grown up in New York. She'd heard the name Moretti. Everyone in the 5 boroughs had heard the name Moretti. The Moretti family controlled most of the legitimate businesses in Manhattan: restaurants, construction, waste management, real estate. They also controlled most of the illegitimate businesses: protection, gambling, loan sharking. The Morettis weren't small time. They were an institution. Old money, old power, dangerous money, lethal power. Dante Moretti was the head of the family, the boss, the man who decided who thrived and who disappeared. And Vinny had just tried to poison him. Oh God, Vinny whispered, bile rising in his throat. Oh God, please, I didn't know. That's the problem, Dante said, crouching down so he was eye level with Vinny. You didn't know. You saw someone who looked vulnerable and you attacked. Like a coward, like a bully. You know what we do to bullies in my world, Vincent? Vinny was crying now, snot running down his face. Please, I have a family. Liar, Dante said flatly. You're divorced. Your ex-wife won't speak to you. Your kids haven't called you in 3 years. Don't pretend you have people who'd miss you. He stood up, towering over Vinny. But you're right about one thing. You do have obligations. You owe Sal DeMarco $47,000. You owe Benny the book another $22,000. And you owe my cousin Frankie $15,000 that you borrowed 6 months ago. Vinny's eyes went wide. Your cousin? Frankie Moretti loaned you money to cover a bad bet. You told him you were good for it. That you were managing a successful restaurant, that the money was rolling in, but you've been skimming from this place, bleeding it dry, and you still can't make your payments. Dante looked around the restaurant with disgust. This place was owned by Michael Lombardi. Good man. Old school. He died 8 months ago, and the property went to his nephew Anthony, who lives in Florida and doesn't know a ribeye from a pork chop. Anthony hired you to manage it, and you've been stealing from him, from the staff, from everyone. How do you know all this? Vinny asked, his voice barely a whisper. Because Anthony Lombardi is a friend of mine, Dante said. He asked me to check on his uncle's restaurant. Said the numbers didn't make sense. Revenue was down, but the place was always busy. So I came to see for myself. I wanted to see how you treated people when you thought no one important was watching. Dante gestured to his muddy clothes, now discarded on the booth. This wasn't random, Vincent. This was a test. And you failed spectacularly. Marcus stepped forward. Boss, what do you want us to do with him? Dante looked at Vinny with cold calculation. Take him to the office. I want a full accounting of everything he's stolen. Every penny. And then we're going to have a conversation with Anthony about how to handle this legally. Legally? Marcus sounded almost disappointed. Dante smiled slightly. I'm trying something new. Personal growth. He looked at Sonia. Someone recently reminded me that not everyone who makes mistakes deserves the worst punishment. Some people are just scared and weak. They deserve a second chance. His eyes hardened as they returned to Vinny. But Vincent here. He's not scared and weak. He's cruel and stupid. That's different. Marcus, take him. Marcus grabbed Vinny by the arm and hauled him to his feet. Vinny started to struggle, to plead. But Marcus simply lifted him off the ground like he weighed nothing and carried him toward the back office. The older man with the dead eyes followed silently. The door closed behind them with an ominous thud. Dante turned to Marco, who was standing there waiting for his own judgment. Marco, Dante said. Sir, what you did was wrong. You know that. Yes, sir. I know. But I believe you when you say you were coerced. I believe you have daughters who need you. Dante paused. Are you a good chef, Marco? When you're not being ordered to poison people? I like to think so, sir. I trained at the Culinary Institute. I worked at Le Bernardin for 3 years before I came here. I know my way around a kitchen. Good, Dante said, because I'm about to own this restaurant. Anthony's going to sell it to me, probably for $1, considering the mess it's in. And I'm going to need a head chef I can trust. Someone who understands that in my establishments, we treat every customer like their family. Whether they're wearing Armani or wearing rags. Can you do that, Marco? Marco stared at him, not believing what he was hearing. You're not going to hurt me? I'm going to give you a job, Dante corrected. Better pay, full benefits. But you're going on probation. Any shortcuts, any health code violations, any hint of the person you were tonight, and you're gone. Not just fired, gone in a way that ensures you never cook again. Do we understand each other? Yes, sir, Marco said, his voice thick with emotion. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. I won't let you down. See that you don't, Dante said. Now go clean that kitchen, top to bottom. I want that waste bin sterilized. I want every surface scrubbed. When we reopen, this place is going to be spotless. Yes, sir. Marco practically ran back to the kitchen, relief and purpose driving him forward. Dante watched him go, then turned to Sonia, who had been standing there trying to process everything that had just happened. Her entire worldview had been shattered and rebuilt in the span of 20 minutes. Sonia, Dante said gently, we need to talk about you. Am I in trouble? She asked, hating how small her voice sounded. Trouble? Dante looked genuinely confused. Sonia, you're the only person here who did everything right. You saw an injustice and you acted. You risked your job, your livelihood, everything you were working for, to help a stranger. Do you understand how rare that is? How valuable? I couldn't let him hurt you, Sonia said. It wasn't right. No, it wasn't, Dante agreed. And you're the only one who had the courage to stop it. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out the crumpled napkin she'd given him. The blue ink was smudged but still legible. This napkin saved my life tonight, or at least saved me from a very unpleasant few days. More importantly, it showed me something I'd almost forgotten, that good people still exist, that integrity isn't dead. He looked at her seriously. Sonia, I know about your father, the cancer, the treatments. I know about your sister's tuition. I know you're drowning financially. I heard you on the phone in the back alley before I came in. I was out there getting into character, and I heard you crying while you talked to Emma about selling your car to make rent. Sonia felt her face burn with embarrassment. I didn't know anyone was there. I know, Dante said. And that made it real. You weren't performing for anyone. You were just a daughter and a sister trying to hold your family together. He gestured around the restaurant. I'm buying this place. It's going to be part of my holdings. And I need someone to run it. Someone who understands what hospitality really means. Not just serving food, but protecting people, making them feel safe and valued. Mr. Moretti, Sonia started. I'm just a waitress. I don't know how to manage a restaurant. I barely graduated high school. I can't. You can learn the business side. Dante interrupted. Numbers are easy. Ethics are hard. You have the ethics. We can teach you everything else. I'm making you the general manager of Lombardi's, effective immediately. Salary of $85,000 a year plus bonuses. Full health insurance that covers dependents, including your father's treatments. Sonia's knees went weak. She grabbed the back of a chair to keep from falling. That's not possible. That's what you're worth, Dante said firmly. And regarding your sister's tuition, consider it handled. I'm setting up a scholarship fund. The Blue Napkin Scholarship, I think I'll call it. It'll cover Emma's remaining 3 years of nursing school. Full ride. Books, fees, everything. Tears were streaming down Sonia's face now. Why? Why would you do this for me? Dante stepped closer, his voice soft but intense. Because tonight, I was cold, hungry, and treated like garbage by everyone except you. You saw a human being who needed help. You didn't see a homeless man. You didn't see a problem. You saw a neighbor. That's who you are. And people like you should be rewarded, not punished. He pulled a business card from his jacket and handed it to her. Take tomorrow off. Spend it with your family. Tell your father his treatments are covered. Tell your sister she can focus on her studies. Then come see me at this address on Monday morning. We're going to renovate this place top to bottom, and you're going to help me design it. Sonia left Lombardi's that night in a daze, clutching Dante's business card like it was a winning lottery ticket. The rain had stopped, leaving the Manhattan streets gleaming under the streetlights. She'd walked these blocks 1,000 times, but tonight they looked different. Tonight, everything looked different. She took the subway home to Queens, barely aware of the other passengers or the familiar stops. When she walked into the small 2-bedroom apartment she shared with her father, the living room was dark, except for the blue glow of the television. Sonia? Her father's voice came from his recliner, weak but alert. That you, sweetheart? Yeah, Dad, it's me, she said, dropping her bag and walking over to him. Frank Mitchell was 61 but looked 80. The cancer had eaten away at him for 2 years, stealing his weight, his hair, his strength, but his eyes, those sharp brown eyes that had watched her grow up, those were still fighting. You're late, he said. Everything okay at work? Sonia sat on the arm of his chair, looking at this man who'd worked 3 jobs to raise her and Emma after their mother died. This man who'd never missed a parent-teacher conference, who'd walked her down the aisle at her high school graduation when she got her diploma, who'd held her hand when her engagement fell apart 3 years ago. Dad, she said, her voice cracking, something happened tonight. Something impossible. She told him everything. The muddy stranger, Vinny's cruelty, the poisoned steak, the napkin. The revelation of who Dante Moretti really was, the job offer, the scholarship for Emma, the promise to cover his medical bills. Frank listened without interrupting, his weathered hand gripping hers tighter and tighter as the story unfolded. When she finished, he was crying silently. "Sonia Rose Mitchell," he whispered, using her full name the way he only did when his emotions overwhelmed him. "You did good, baby. You did so good." "I was so scared," Sonia admitted. "I thought Vinny would fire me. I thought we'd lose everything." "But you did it anyway," Frank said, pulling her down into a hug. "That's courage, sweetheart. Real courage, not being unafraid. Being terrified and doing the right thing anyway." They held each other and cried, releasing months of accumulated fear and stress and exhaustion. When Emma came home an hour later from her night shift at the hospital where she was doing her clinical rotations, they told her too. Emma, practical and sharp-tongued and perpetually stressed about money, actually screamed with joy. "Are you serious?" Emma kept asking. "This isn't a joke. This is real." "It's real," Sonia said, showing her the business card. "I start Monday." The three of them stayed up until 3 a.m., talking, planning, laughing, crying. For the first time in years, the apartment felt light. The crushing weight of impossible debt had been lifted. They could breathe. Monday morning came too fast and too slow at the same time. Sonia stood outside a gleaming high-rise in Midtown, checking the address on the business card for the 5th time. This was it, Moretti Holdings. 47th floor. She rode the elevator up, her stomach doing flips. The elevator doors opened onto a reception area that looked like it cost more than her entire apartment building. Marble floors, leather furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. A receptionist who looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine smiled at her. "Sonia Mitchell?" "Yes," Sonia said. "Mr. Moretti is expecting you. Conference room 3. I'll take you back." The receptionist led her through a maze of hallways lined with photographs. Restaurants, construction projects, charity events, all bearing the Moretti name. They stopped at a glass-walled conference room. Inside, Dante sat at a long table covered in blueprints and design samples. He'd traded the torn jacket for a perfectly tailored charcoal suit. His platinum blonde hair was slicked back immaculately. The tattoos on his hands and neck were visible, but now they looked like marks of distinction rather than danger. "Sonia," he said, standing when she entered. "Thank you for coming. Please sit." As she sat, the door opened again. A woman entered, mid-50s, elegant, with steel-gray hair and sharp eyes. She carried a leather portfolio. "Sonia, this is Angela Ricci," Dante introduced. "She's my business manager. She handles all my legitimate holdings. She's going to be your mentor." "Pleasure to meet you," Angela said, shaking Sonia's hand with a grip that was firm and assessing. "Dante tells me you have integrity and instinct. Those are harder to teach than spreadsheets." For the next 3 hours, they walked Sonia through everything. The financial state of Lombardi's, worse than she'd imagined. The renovation plans, extensive and expensive. The new menu concepts, upscale but approachable. And most importantly, her role. "You'll shadow Angela for 3 months, Dante explained. "Learn the business operations, the vendor relationships, the staffing. After that, you're on your own. But you'll have support. My people will always be available if you need them. I won't let you down," Sonia promised. "I know you won't," Dante said. There was a knock on the conference room door. Marcus, the massive enforcer from Friday night, stuck his head in. "Boss, sorry to interrupt, but we have a situation. It's about Vincent Calabresi." Dante's expression darkened. "Excuse me for a moment." He left the room with Marcus. Through the glass walls, Sonia could see them talking intently. Dante's body language changed, less businessman, more predator. He made a phone call, his face grim. When he returned 5 minutes later, his jaw was set with cold fury. "Change of plans," he said. "We need to go to Lombardi's. Now. There's something you need to see." 20 minutes later, they arrived at the restaurant. It was Monday afternoon, so the place was closed for the renovations that were supposed to start that week. But something was wrong. The front window was shattered. Glass glittered on the sidewalk like diamonds. "Stay behind me," Dante ordered as they approached the door. Marcus and 2 other men flanked them, their hands inside their jackets. Inside, the restaurant was destroyed. Tables overturned, chairs smashed. The beautiful new leather booth slashed open, stuffing pulled out like guts. The walls were spray-painted with crude messages. Snitch. Dead man. Moretti bastard. And in the center of the dining room, hanging from the chandelier by his apron strings, was a mannequin dressed in chef's whites. A crude sign around its neck read, "Marco the Rat." "Jesus," Sonia whispered. "Vinny," Dante said, his voice deadly calm. "He made bail Saturday morning. I should have known he wouldn't go quietly." Marcus handed Dante a phone, showing him something on the screen. "Boss, it gets worse. Look at this." It was a text message thread. Vinny had been messaging someone named Carlo. The messages were threats, plans to burn down Lombardi's, plans to hurt Marco's daughters to teach him a lesson about loyalty, plans to handle Sonia because she was the one who'd exposed him. "He knows where I live," Sonia said, her voice shaking as she read the messages. "He has my address. He knows about my father." "Not anymore," Dante said. His voice was ice over steel. "Marcus, I want a protection detail on Sonia's apartment. 24/7. No one gets near her family." "Already done, boss," Marcus said. "I sent Tommy and Vic over an hour ago when we got word about this. Her father and sister are safe." Dante looked at Sonia. "I'm moving you. All of you. I own a building in Brooklyn Heights. Secure. Doorman. Security cameras. You'll have a 3-bedroom apartment there. No charge. Consider it part of your compensation package. Mr. Moretti." "Dante," he corrected. "And this isn't negotiable. Vinny escalated this. He threatened civilians. Your family. That crosses a line that can't be uncrossed." Dante pulled out his phone and made a call. "Yeah, it's me. I need you to find Vincent Calabresi. Last known address was Queens, but he's probably in the wind. Check his usual spots, the OTB on Queens Boulevard, his bookie's place in Red Hook, his ex-wife's house in Astoria." He paused, listening. "I don't care if his ex doesn't want to talk. Make her want to talk. And when you find Vinny, bring him to the warehouse, not the office. The warehouse. I'll meet you there tonight." He ended the call. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Sonia, Angela's going to take you to the new apartment," Dante said. "Get your family moved today. Pack whatever you need. Everything else will be replaced. I'll have movers handle the heavy stuff." "What are you going to do?" Sonia asked, though part of her already knew. "I'm going to make sure Vincent Calabresi understands that threatening my people has consequences," Dante said. His face was impassive, but his blue eyes burned with cold fire. "Don't worry about the details. Just know that he won't be a problem anymore." "Dante," Sonia said carefully, "I don't want anyone to get hurt because of me." Dante looked at her, and for a moment his expression softened. "Sonia, you saved my life. You protected me when you had everything to lose. Now I'm protecting you. This is what family does. And whether you realize it yet or not, you're family now." Angela gently touched Sonia's arm. "Come on, honey. Let's get you out of here. The boys need to handle this their way." Sonia didn't sleep that night. The new apartment was beautiful. Hardwood floors, modern appliances, a view of the Brooklyn Bridge that looked like a postcard. Her father had his own room with an adjustable bed that Dante's people had somehow procured in less than 6 hours. Emma had a room with an actual desk for studying. It was everything they'd dreamed of. But all Sonia could think about was Dante, somewhere in the city, doing something to Vinny. Something permanent. Something violent. She'd saved a mafia boss, and now that mafia boss was eliminating threats on her behalf. At 3 a.m., her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "It's handled. Get some rest. See you at the restaurant at noon. D." That was it. No details. No explanation. Just, it's handled. The next morning, Sonia took the subway to Lombardi's. The shattered window had already been replaced. New glass, sparkling clean. The graffiti was gone, the walls repainted. The destroyed furniture had been removed. It was like the vandalism had never happened. Inside, a construction crew was working. The whole place was being gutted and rebuilt. Marco was there, supervising the kitchen renovation, his face drawn but determined. "Sonia," he said when he saw her. "Did you hear?" "Hear what?" "Vinny. They found him this morning trying to board a bus to Canada. The police arrested him. Apparently, someone sent them an anonymous tip along with evidence of his gambling debts, his embezzlement from the restaurant, and," Marco lowered his voice, "evidence that he'd been involved in an insurance fraud scheme with some of his bookie's people. They were planning to burn down Lombardi's and collect on the policy. Vinny's going away for a long time." Sonia felt relief flood through her. "The police have him?" "Yeah, and get this. His bookies, the guys he owed money to, they all suddenly decided to forgive his debts and cooperate with the authorities. Just woke up this morning and decided to become model citizens. Isn't that amazing?" Marco's tone suggested he knew exactly why that had happened. Dante had reached out, not with violence, but with influence. He'd made it clear that Vinny was untouchable because harming him would bring consequences. And then he'd ensured Vinny would be locked away legally, properly, permanently. At noon, Dante arrived. He looked tired but satisfied. His platinum blonde hair was perfectly slicked back, his black suit immaculate. The gold chain with the ornate cross caught the light as he walked through the construction zone. "Sonia," he said, "walk with me." They went outside, walking along the Manhattan streets as lunch crowds swirled around them. For a while, Dante didn't say anything. Finally, he spoke. "My father died when I was 17, he said quietly. "Heart attack. Sudden. He was a good man, tough but fair. He built everything we have from nothing. Started with one restaurant, one tiny place in Little Italy that barely paid the rent. He taught me that the restaurant business isn't really about food. It's about creating sanctuary. People come to eat? Yes. But more than that, they come to escape, to feel safe, to feel valued. It's our job to protect that feeling, to keep the storm outside." Dante looked at her. "When I took over the family business, I forgot that sometimes. I got focused on expansion, on profits, on power. I stopped seeing the people. I stopped remembering why my father built all this in the first place. Friday night, you reminded me," he continued. "You saw someone who needed help, and you helped them. No hesitation, no calculation, just pure human decency. That's rarer than you think, especially in my world." "I'm not special," Sonia said. "I just did what anyone should do." "But most don't," Dante countered. "Most people look away. They convince themselves it's not their problem. They protect themselves first. You risked everything for a stranger." They stopped at a corner. Across the street was Lombardi's, scaffolding now covering the front as workers rebuilt it into something new, something better. "That restaurant is yours now," Dante said. "Legally, I own it, but in every way that matters, it's yours. You're going to run it. You're going to hire good people and treat them well. You're going to create the kind of place my father would have been proud of. And if you ever see someone walk in who looks like they don't belong, someone muddy, someone poor, someone the world has written off, I want you to remember Friday night. Remember that every person who walks through that door is someone's son or daughter, someone's father or mother, someone who matters." Sonia felt tears prick her eyes. "I will. I promise." Dante pulled an envelope from his jacket and handed it to her. "This is the deed to the building. It's in your name now. The restaurant, the property, all of it. You're not just managing it. You own it." Sonia stared at the envelope, unable to comprehend what he was saying. "I can't. This is too much." "It's not enough," Dante said. "You saved my life. You reminded me who I'm supposed to be. This is the least I can do." "But why?" Sonia asked. Why give all this to me? Dante smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes and made him look younger. Because my father used to say that the measure of a man isn't what he takes, it's what he gives. And because I want to see what you'll build, I think you're going to do something special. He checked his watch, that expensive Patek Philippe that cost more than most people made in a year. I have to go. Business. But you have Angela's number. You have Marco. You have everything you need. The rest is up to you. Dante started to walk away, then paused and turned back. Oh, and Sonia? That burger you offered me from the food truck? Rain check. Once the restaurant reopens, I'm coming back for dinner. And this time, I'm expecting the best steak in Manhattan. Think you can handle that? Sonia laughed through her tears. Yes, sir, I can handle that. Dante nodded, satisfied. Then he disappeared into the crowd. Just another man in an expensive suit walking through Midtown. But Sonia knew better. That wasn't just any man. That was the man who'd tested her character and found it worthy. That was the man who'd repaid her kindness with the kind of generosity most people only dream about. That was Dante Moretti. And somehow, impossibly, he'd become her guardian angel. 6 months later, Lombardi's Prime reopened to massive fanfare. The reviews were spectacular. The reservations were booked solid for 3 months. Sonia stood at the host stand on opening night, wearing a tailored black suit that made her feel powerful and professional, watching the dining room fill with happy customers. Her father was in remission, strong enough to attend the opening. Emma had aced her midterms and was on track to graduate with honors. And in booth 6, the booth where everything had started, sat Dante Moretti. He wore his usual black suit, his platinum blonde hair slicked back perfectly, his gold chain and cross glinting in the warm light. His tattooed hands, decorated with diamond rings, rested on the white tablecloth. Marco personally delivered his meal. A perfect 24-ounce ribeye, cooked medium rare, with truffle mashed potatoes and grilled asparagus. The same order from that rainy Thursday night. But this time the meat was prime, perfect, and prepared with love. Dante cut into the steak, took a bite, and closed his eyes in appreciation. When he opened them, he caught Sonia's gaze across the restaurant. He raised his glass to her, a silent toast. She raised hers back. Thank you, she mouthed. He shook his head and mouthed back. Thank you. Because in the end, they'd saved each other. She'd saved his life with a crumpled napkin and a blue pen. He'd saved hers with the kind of second chance most people never get. And in that exchange, in that moment of human decency in a cold world, they'd both remembered something crucial. That kindness is never wasted, that integrity always matters, and that sometimes the person you save might just save you right back. But more than that, they'd both learned the most important lesson of all. The true measure of character isn't how you treat the powerful. It's how you treat those who can do nothing for you. It's what you do when no one important is watching. It's the kindness you show when it costs you everything. That's where real strength lives. That's where real honor is found. And that night, in a Manhattan steakhouse where a waitress had once risked everything for a stranger, both of them finally understood what Dante's father had known all along. We're not in the restaurant business. We're in the business of protecting human dignity. One meal at a time. One act of kindness at a time. One crumpled napkin at a time. The end. This incredible journey shows us that true power isn't about wealth or status. It's about integrity when no one is watching. Sonia went from a struggling waitress to a restaurant owner, all because she refused to let a stranger suffer. Vinny tried to use his authority to harm others, and he lost everything. Sometimes the universe has a way of rewarding good people and punishing the cruel. If this story moved you, if you believe that kindness always comes back around, smash that like button. Share this with someone who needs a reminder that good people still win. Subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss another incredible story of justice, redemption, and the power of doing the right thing.